Hey guys, it's Mitch. How's it going? Yes, we're looking at Grifter number 1 today, but we're also looking at 6 other comics as we take a look at essentially the entire Wildstorm Rising crossover. So just before we get into it, if you enjoy the channel, if you feel like helping out a little bit, in the description there's a link to my Patreon, and if you go subscribe there, that'll give you access to everything I do, from the Blood Force comics to the YouTube videos before they get uploaded to YouTube. So this is, I was going to say the third big crossover I've done. Depends, I guess, on how you feel about the Killer Instinct crossover or the Blood Brothers crossover. I've done a few crossovers now. So at first, when I used to do crossovers, what I would do was I would do every single issue would get a separate video. We don't do that anymore. Extreme Prejudice kind of ruined us for that. So next one up was Extreme Sacrifice, in which we did Extreme Sacrifice number 1. And then we did kind of a catch-all video that was mostly about Prophet number 10, but also included every other part of the Extreme Sacrifice crossover, because none of the other issues really had anything happening in them, and they weren't good. They all sucked. Prophet number 10, at least, it didn't have a whole lot happening in it, but it was cool. And then we did Extreme Sacrifice number 2 to wrap things up. And I figured we'd do kind of a similar template here. I did a Wildstorm Rising number 1 video. I did Wildcats, had its own video, but every issue of Wildcats has its own video anyway. So that's nothing new. And then there was like 7 issues left, and then Wildstorm Rising number 2. So I figured maybe I can break those 7 issues down into like 2 videos and you know, find a good issue in each group. And then I took a look through them. There isn't really a good issue. There isn't even an equivalent to Prophet number 10, which at least looked amazing. All of them have a little bit of something happen in them, and most of them have at least something at least somewhat interesting with the art. But for the most part, no, there is no focus issue for this video. So Grifter number 1 it is, because number 1s get more people watching. That's how it works. All right, so we're going to swap this out for the moment because that's not the next chapter. Next chapter is Union number 4. So the whole deal with this crossover is that there's this Daemonite lord called Defile who has been kind of insinuating himself in the Wildstorm universe, and he's been kind of making himself known in every title except Wildcats, so I had no idea who this guy was. All right, so we found out about a new artifact that everybody should be looking for. These are the keys. There's 3 keys to a buried Daemonite ship, the Dreadnought. This is the Daemonite ship that would have crash-landed on Earth thousands of years ago, and each of the 3 Daemonite lords that were on that ship would have had one of the keys. Defile is one of those Daemonite lords. The other one would have been the captain, who's dead, and the third one was Hellspawn, who is also theoretically dead. So Defile's trying to get those keys so he can turn on the Dreadnought and do, I don't know, fucking something. All the super people want to find the keys so that Defile doesn't get the keys. That's the reason. And the only other guy is Hightower, who's like a low-level Daemonite, who also wants the keys so that he can go home. We're not going super complicated on motivations on this one. Oh, and the key that the captain had, I think Defile has managed to secure the hand that was holding that key, but part of the key was broken off by Deathblow, just because he saw it in the jungle and thought it was shiny, and figured I need to keep that. And this happened with Deathblow when Deathblow was a part of Team 7. So we're using that, really, as the conceit for this entire crossover, which is that Defile is sending Daemonites after old members of Team 7, which makes up most of the Wildstorm universe. All right, so that was actually a bit more description than I would have thought was necessary. Let's get to Union number 4. The whole deal with this is that at the end of Wildcats number 20, Savant got kidnapped by Defile's henchman, Mr. White. He's a shapeshifter. Majestic showed up and punched at Mr. White, but Mr. White escaped. And then Union appeared and thought maybe Majestic was punching at Savant instead. So he decides that Majestic needs to, in turn, be punched. And as with every issue in this crossover, this is going to have a cover by Barry Windsor Smith. Because, I don't know, Barry Windsor Smith, I guess, got the inclination to do some work for hire stuff again. Or needed money, or just, you know, maybe not even needed money. Just like, that's a lot of money. I could draw some shit for that amount of money. Now, after this crossover, Barry Windsor Smith, I think, felt pretty soiled and never really dipped his toe in the superhero pool again. But in the meantime, we got a couple of interesting covers anyway. Like, this is a pretty good one here. And I mean, this is all that's going to happen in the issue anyway. This is Majestic versus Union. This is one big fucking fight. I like the swirling capes, though. That's some nice stuff. And some pretty thick inking going on. Who's inking this thing? I can't read that. It seems a little weird that Barry isn't inking himself. This is Braley? I don't know who that is. Bialy. Alex Bialy. Okay. Whoever that is, I like this job. That looks all right. Okay, so this one is going to be, well, we might as well just get to the beginning here. This one is going to be written by James Robinson, who has been writing Wildcats recently, penciled by Ryan Benjamin, and inked mostly by Chuck Gibson. Ryan Benjamin, of course, is very well known these days and is very good at his Jim Lee pastiche. Back in this time, not for nothing. Ryan Benjamin, at least, is not going to half-ass any of this, which I appreciate. If he gets an idea for a panel or page he wants to try, he's going to go for it. And I'm always behind that. His finish isn't particularly great. He doesn't really understand where muscles go here. He understands the basic shape of the arms pretty well, actually. But the lumps in the middle, not so much. Doesn't use very much black. But this fight is pretty good. You get a big punch from Majestic here. You get Union blasting him back, and they're like blasting at each other. Can Majestic do blasty stuff? Maybe he can. But the camera's swinging all around. They're taking big swings at each other. There's speed lines going. This is a pretty good fight, as far as superhero fights go. And then Majestic falls on power lines, and he goes, ah! And then the entire neighborhood goes dark. In the meantime, Grifter is sitting in a bar somewhere, thinking about how he needs to find Deathblow, because he knows that Deathblow is the guy from Team 7 who has at least part of one of the Daemonite keys. And the reason Grifter knows that is because Grifter is also a member of Team 7. But yeah, you can see, Ryan Benjamin's just making shit up here. Whenever he's got to, it feels like he's just used to doing the outlines, for the most part. And it's only recently that it's occurred to him that he had to fill those up with any kind of texture. So he's just putting in, random shapes and shit. Some of it looks okay, some of it looks clearly just invented on the spot. And in another meantime, Wildcats are fighting Daemonites. I don't remember which Daemonites these are. It maybe doesn't even matter. But you see what I mean about Ryan Benjamin just kind of going for it? Let's do a big old 2-page spread where we get all of our guys, and then we photocopy the smaller shots of our guys so that we can talk about them each individually, although some of them actually get shrunk down further instead of getting blown up. But, that's a lot of stuff to draw. The Majestic Union fight's still going. Hey, that's a fun shot. There's some decent stuff in this one. For the most part, the finish isn't really there. Synergy is the new weatherman at Stormwatch, and she's sad because she got responsibilities now, and that's sad. Even meanwhile here, the two alien Superman guys grunt at each other. As far as 2-page spreads go, this isn't too bad. Yeah, there's some fun stuff going on here. There's some really silly rendering going, like shadowing. But again, I enjoy that he's just kind of having fun with a pencil here. All right, and at the end of it, Savant shows up and, goes, you guys were fighting over nothing. Because Majestic wasn't trying to punch me, so he punched him for nothing. Dumbass. So, we don't have any of the keys, but it doesn't matter because what we should be looking for is the ship. And it's kind of like, you know what, I don't mind that particular line of reasoning. The only problem is that they don't know exactly where it is. All they know is that it's somewhere in Nicaragua. Savant's like, that's okay, I'm Wildstorm Tomb Raider, so just put me down in Nicaragua somewhere, and I'll find the thing. This is our Defile here. He got nice and shadowed here, at least. That's all right. Yeah. Defile's got some plans going on. And we get some posters in every episode of this. This is a Union poster, by the way, just to let you know. And we can't waste any time. So, yeah, we're not even going to bother looking at the ads. All right, Chapter 4 is Gen 13, number 2. This is the regular series number 2. And which has actually kind of a funny cover with Lord Defile. Check it out, Fairchild's rack. And he's hitting the enhance button specifically. That's in line with a Gen 13 cover. It's kind of funny that he can't figure out how to draw a cheesecake shot of Fairchild. Or just I don't know, he doesn't want to devote the time to it. Freefall here looks pretty good, although it doesn't look anything like Freefall. That's okay. Okay, most of this is not going to have anything to do with the Wildstorm Rising crossover. There's some armadillo guy here. They don't know who he is for the news broadcast, but we'll get to that eventually. Lynch is another ex-member of Team 7, so he's going to have somebody thrown at him by Defile. And this, of course, is going to be written by J. Scott Campbell and Brandon Choi, penciled by J. Scott Campbell, inked by Alex Garner. So this is still pretty early for J. Scott Campbell, but he has established himself as a superstar penciler at this point, I would say. That said, this issue, he's kind of taken off. Like this is like a fun shot of grunge. If you like grunge, get a nice big poster of him. But like these pages, he's not really putting any thought into. Like J. Scott Campbell was particularly good at coming up with inventive page designs in the Gen 13 miniseries. But he's not really doing any of that here. He's not doing any gratuitous shots of the girls, at least not just yet. We're going to get a little bit later on. This feels like a comic he didn't have time to do properly. So yeah, this is J. Scott Campbell's version of Defile, who's fun. This is like the He-Man version of Defile. And yeah, so he's looking for Lynch, because maybe Lynch is the guy with the part of the key that I need. And I don't know who this guy is, but he's going to tell Defile where Lynch is located. So he's going to send, this is the armadillo guy. What's his name? His name is Helmut. But, not coming up with anything particularly interesting for page designs. Not going super hard on any of these pages. Even gets back to the Gen 13 people who are all lounging by the pool and doesn't even come up with a particularly gratuitous shot of any of these women here. Again, we'll get there. There we go. But this doesn't feel like J. Scott Campbell gratuitous, really. Like, not what we'd expect from J. Scott, I feel like. We do get the bit that I remember Wizard making a fuss about, which is Rainmaker feeling up Freefall's ass. So this is the issue where we find out Rainmaker likes girls. I suppose that's appropriate. But like, really, it feels like this is the first time it's like, oh yeah, this is a J. Scott Campbell book, because that's definitely one of his faces. The rest of these pages, like, could be him. Could be somebody who draws a bit like him. But, this is largely a team hangout issue until the armadillo guy shows up. I suppose that's kind of a fun shot of the guy, but yeah, I feel like that's almost the only fun shot that's been in this issue so far. So yeah, they're just going to fight the guy who, and this doesn't really have anything to do with the Wildstorm Rising crossover other than Defile thinks maybe John Lynch has the key and he's going to get disabused of that. This is the other only real fun shot in the book, I think, because he puts a bit of extra time into this. This is the armadillo guy being all fraught when Burnout here gets his guitar out, and that's how he's going to stop him, is by playing a chord too loud. And they stop him eventually by punching his belt, which kind of releases his uniform, and it all falls off him. Yeah, that issue kind of sucks. Unless you're big on Rainmaker feeling up Freefall, which, some people definitely were. I should see, though, and we actually get a J. Scott Campbell version of the cover on this. That's a pretty good cover, I guess. Although this is around the time when Gen 13 is doing all the parody covers. So, yeah, this is kind of Spy Who Loved Me, I guess. Or is it For Your Eyes Only? I can never remember which one. All right, so on to the Grifter issue. Next to nothing has happened so far. And I read all of these today, just so you know. I think this is around the point when I realized this is just essentially Extreme Sacrifice all over again. Because I was thinking maybe, I don't know why I keep giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I figure because there's a bunch of, pretty real writers involved in this thing. There's James Robinson, there's Steven Seagal, there's Ron Mars, Brandon Choi's in there too, but you think he'd just kind of defer to all the other people. And I thought maybe they're going to coordinate a little bit and actually try and figure out like a sequence of events that goes from issue to issue. They're not really doing that though. They're just all doing their own separate thing within their own comic. There's like a basic timeline for when Grifter is meeting up with people, and then everything else just kind of happens around it. So I guess we should get to the Grifter issue. That's a very good cover, other than Grifter's perm is a little unsettling. But that's an alright shot. Barry Windsor-Smith doesn't really know how to do image cool shots. That's pretty good as far as that goes. And this is going to be another Ryan Benjamin book. Now, this is the only other one he's drawing, but still, it feels like Ryan Benjamin is getting a lot of work in around this time. So in this one, Grifter makes a phone call, which signals to Defile's Daemonites, and then they go and blow up the phone, which sends him flying. And, you see what I mean about Ryan Benjamin taking some chances, though, with, this double-page spread. This is Grifter going flying. This is the phone booth exploding behind him. Here's the drone, the plane flying in. Plane looks pretty good, too. And, it's a gigantic shot of Grifter with, a fair bit of forced perspective going on with the hand here. And, he's kind of going away from us. The foot is pretty small in comparison to the head. That's pretty good. And this is basically just going to be Grifter versus these Daemonites. Because Defile thinks, okay, maybe Grifter knows where the key is. So we're going to cut between that fight and a couple of flashbacks into Grifter's life. So when he ran away from home because his stepfather would beat him. Back to the fight. Nothing particularly special here. Back to the fight again. There's some okay stuff. And I mean, Ryan Benjamin's doing a bunch of drawing. I appreciate that. He's not... Like, there are some of these comics where there's not a lot of pencil lines on the page. And you can't really say that in a Ryan Benjamin comic. So that's pretty good. Another big explosion. Oh, yeah. Fair amount of detail. Shit blowing up and getting split apart. There's some good stuff going on in here. I feel like we've seen Ryan Benjamin from like maybe a few months before this. And he's made some progress since then. A bit of a flashback to Burma when Grifter was in Team 7 and he got the Grifter name apparently. And the way he got the name was because he sniped somebody. And then I guess this is, I'm not sure who this, I think this is Backlash. Called him a Deadeye. And Grifter goes, nah, I'm a lone wolf. And all I want you to give me is a transfer out of this death trap. And Backlash is like, lone wolf my butt, you're a con man. A grifter. So that's okay. I mean, there's no other good reason to call him that other than just, Jim Lee thought it was a cool sounding name and didn't think too much about what the word meant. More fight stuff. Nothing really great happening. Again, those ships look pretty good, though. A little bit off center. But that's okay. I mean, the coloring is actually making up a lot of the difference here. Shit, yeah, not a whole lot else. He's just in this fight for the whole damn issue. We cut back to a little bit of his relationship with Zealot. Like this, as a number 1, this is not terrible because we get to see Grifter in a big, long fight, and we also get to see flashes of his past. We're learning a bit more about the character, theoretically. Who wrote this one? I say this is Steve Siegel, yeah. Another 2-page spread with another explosion. Not a ton... I don't know about how much he had to draw on this. It doesn't feel like a whole lot, but yeah, it looks okay. And at the end of it here, Defile decides the Deathblow is probably the guy who has the key. And so he's going to send people after Deathblow next. And that's not a bad shot of Defiled there. And we're crossing him over into a whole bunch of panel borders here. That's good stuff. Jim Calafiore. Long-time house-style guy. Basically. I mean, a little bit more than house style, but, that's kind of a house style grifter. And do we get, no, we don't get an extra cover on that one. But, you see what I mean when I say that, there is no overarching story to this. You'd think there would be chapters. You think about the Inferno crossover. I mean, obviously we're asking a bit too much to compare Wildstorm Rising to something like Inferno, which was considered beforehand. And mapped out, and okay, we need to do this in this issue, this in this issue. This is more like, okay, everybody who has a comic, you got Daemonites coming for your guy in your comic. And we're not even going to link up where they meet up. So now we're on Deathblow number 16. This is chapter 6. Really nothing has happened so far. Decent cover. Again, we're just kind of getting Barry's version of what he thinks Image splashes look like. I mean, it's not bad. It's a little silly for Barry. And he's getting a little crazy. He's not paying attention to proportion here. And just, kind of blasting indiscriminately. But yeah, I think he's just kind of stopped giving a shit. And it's like, okay, what do fucking 14-year-olds think is cool? I do like this deal here, though, with the gun blast going up in an arc. Not hitting anything. He's just shooting at everything. That's pretty great. Okay, this one is... Okay, who's doing this one? This is by Steve Siegel, by Travis Scott et al. Yeah, there's some weird attribution in this one. Pencils, Trevor Scott. So there's Trevor Scott, inked by Trevor Scott pages. There's Mel Ruby, inked by Rick Magyar, who I think is an old school Marvel guy. And Tom Rainey's in this somewhere, although I don't know where. I didn't see anything that looked remotely like Tom Rainey. And this one is just Daemonites have figured out that it's Deathblow who has the key. It's interesting to see this late in Deathblow, where they're still kind of nominally paying lip service to the idea of the Frank Miller no-holding line style, but just barely. Jim Lee's long gone, Tim Sale's long gone. We're down to whoever can get pages in on time. there's some fun stuff here and there. Like, I like the attempt here at the double page explosion. I feel like we saw something similar in Grifter. And yeah, there's no real plot development in this, and for the most part, the art can't really hold up. There's still a shit ton of drawing in here, which I appreciate. But, it's not even as good as what we've been seeing up until now. I don't know who David Williams is, but I like the design sense in this particular pinup. That's all right. And yeah, so basically just Deathblow has set up his house. He's gotten warned beforehand that Daemonites are coming, so he set up all sorts of traps. It's the end of Skyfall. And he's picking Daemonites off all over the place. It's kind of a fun sequence, really. I don't think it's played out very well. And then you get sequences like this that just look kind of terrible, really. This is him in his house, I think, shooting out from different parts of the house. No, that's not really any kind of good. And then we end with Grifter finding Deathblow, going, "Oh man, that was a lot of bullets you shot out there. Good job. Hey, tell you what, you got the key?" And he's like, "Yes, I'm using it as a doorknob," which just hiding it out in the open. It's like, "Cool, thank you. I will take the key now." And then Grifter comes by, and he goes, "So where's the key?" And he goes, "Oh shit, that wasn't you that I gave that to just now, was it?" So no, that was Mr. White, the shapeshifter. Maybe this is the Tom Rainey page. It feels like it might be. So he gives that to Defile. Defile now has, so he has his key, plus he has the half a key that Deathblow had. So he's halfway to his goal. And yeah, that's it for that one. Chapter 7, Wetworks number 8. Still by Wills. We are on number 8, though. This is 1997. Wetworks number 1 came out in 1990. I want to say 93, but it might have been as late as 94. Either way, this is minimum 3 years for 8 issues. Which I think those of us who are familiar with Wills' work, it's not exactly shocking. And hey, at least in the meantime, we've gotten 8 issues of Wills. The only problem is this is not Wills running at 100%. There's nothing particularly creative on this particular page. Like, the finish is really nice. And, I do like this first panel here. That would have looked really nice in the black and white, actually, like really stark, with just the fence against against nothing, really. It's funny, reading through this thing, you quickly learn to just disregard anything that looks like a description box. It's not going to have anything useful. But yeah, it's interesting how the Wildstorm Rising crossover can just kind of be used as sort of like a gauge to just see where Wildstorm is, like how the different titles are doing at this particular time. You take a brief tour around the Wildstorm titles in May of 1997, and you go, okay, this is how they've done, a year after they kicked off a bunch of titles. And yeah, this one at least, the drawings look great, because this is Wills inked by Scott Williams at that. He's still cutting out a lot of backgrounds. There's an awful lot of no panel border, no background kind of panels going on. It works when Wills does it, but he's still doing it more than he needs to, and that's noticeable. And this one is, Dane also used to be on Team 7. Every book essentially has a link to Team 7. Team 7 is the common thread that runs through the Wildstorm universe. So these guys here, they work for Defile, and they're pursuing Dane, looking for the key. Even though, in the last chapter, we discovered that Defile got the key from Deathblow. So, like I said, they're not working in concert whatsoever. And yet we're not getting particularly imaginative pages, unfortunately. We're going to get a few like this, where they're just half a head straight on. Wills likes doing that particular shot. Stuff like this is kind of nice, where he is doing, I'm not sure what exactly is going on. I think this is like a mausoleum. Might be. I'm not for sure. And we get to see where the Wetworks team is, because, we only read up until issue 5. So there's 2 whole pages of continuity that we missed out on. I think this is Dozer, who seems to still be increasing in mass. Last time we saw him, he was just inexplicably getting ridiculously swollen. This is Grail here, of course, still in his blue form because of his chi. We've seen Jester exhibit shapeshifty kind of powers. Pilgrim, I think, has gone missing. They don't know where she is. And the deal from what I understand, is that she turned invisible. So we've managed to kind of whittle down a bunch of the Wetworks team members over the course of the series, which is probably a good idea considering they all look the same. So Wetworks is off. So where are they even going to? Okay, Claymore, Jester, and Grail are ordered to report to the war room. And this is an order that comes from Grail. Colonel, I am receiving an incoming message on the priority channel from Mr. Waring. Mr. Waring was the werewolf who's funding Wetworks. What should I tell? Yeah, whatever. So they're on their Wetworks jet, because that's what it's called, with Grifter and Deathblow, because they met up with Dane. Okay, that's all clear. So they're off to find another one of the keys, because they got to replace the key, well, the half a key that they managed to trick Deathblow for. So since Defile has one whole key and the other half a key, and I don't know where that other half a key is. Doesn't matter. And then there's the Hellspawn key. So they're going to go and find the Hellspawn key, because they know where he was supposed to have died in Wildcats number 4. And so when they get there, it turns out the Wildcats are there. There was nothing indicating that's what was going to happen in any previous issue. So there's no explanation for them being here. Hey, the panels are cool. Like the progression. They just kind of plow right into the landscape here. That's kind of great. And big double page splash that isn't particularly great for Wills. It's good. It's just, like from Wills, you expect a bit more imaginative. This is more classic Wills, where we're going to get into a fight, and naturally we're going to get into a fight. We're going to get Wetworks versus Wildcats, and even Grifter versus Wildcats, because of course he turned his back on Wildcats back in Wildcats number 20. Wildcats.
Wildcats, we're good against people. One and only Wildcats.
All reasonably fun-looking stuff. It never gets really super dynamic. Like, that's not really what Wils's deal is. He's more, like this kind of stuff, where it's a lot more designy and just like crazy looking. Okay, so this is Hightower. He was the no-name Daemonite who was helping the Wildcats get keys. They're all keys. Give me some keys. He stumbles upon Hellspawn's hand. Hellspawn was buried apparently at some point in Wildcats number 4, but he's got his key extended. This is kind of similar to how Deathblow found the one hand holding the key in Nicaragua. So he's about to grab it when he hears a scratching from beneath the surface here. So Hellspawn is apparently alive still, and just kind of slowly digging his way out. I wonder how the hell Wills pencils these like shines. Like this kind of stuff. This is the kind of thing I can see very easily inking with a brush. But he's not inking himself. He's getting Scott Williams to do it. So is he just like taking the side of a pencil? But at the same time, it looks very spontaneous and like even sloppy. But then, is that the case in the actual pencils? It doesn't feel like it would be. Just Wetworks versus Wildcats, guys. There's some pretty good stuff here and there. And then Hellspawn lives. I'm not a huge fan of Wils's version of Hellspawn, I guess, although it is cool to see a different version of Hellspawn. So Hellspawn still has his key. We get the nice big splash for him. That's pretty great. And then he's going to teleport away after he makes some vague threats in the Wildcats' general direction. Meanwhile, Savant and Majestic and Union end up at where they figure is the crash site, I suppose, for the Daemonite Dreadnought. We got a Wetworks pinup by Tim Bradstreet. I don't know who that's supposed to be. It's a very Tim Bradstreet drawing, though. All right. Did he do a cover? He didn't do a cover. Wills, come on. Okay, we are getting there. Chapter 8. This is Backlash number 8. Backlash was a comic. Interesting cover by Barry Windsor Smith. Not too often you'd see an ass on an image cover. And this one is drawn by Brett Booth. And I think Brett Booth did most, if not all, of the issues of Backlash. I know Backlash is a Brett Booth created character. And it's interesting to see where Brett Booth is at this point, because I'm not sure if we have actually touched on his stuff at all. Maybe like a little bit. And it's like, yeah, he's obviously very skilled for like a 20-year-old when we first saw him. But it's, it still shouldn't be running his own show. This is more like he's like a starting lineup kind of penciler. This is some pretty good stuff. Although he's still very obviously very young and makes some kind of rookie mistakes. This kind of stuff is pretty great. This huge splash. Like, you wouldn't expect this from a young guy. But what he does do is he has a tendency to shoot everything on the same plane as the characters that are in the panel. There's no trying to tilt the camera. There's no Dutch angle or going for a worm's or bird's eye view. Generally speaking, like every once in a while it occurs to him. But at this point, mostly it's all, yes, dead on. All right, so Backlash, as mentioned previously, is another ex-member of Team 7. I think he's the last one that we haven't touched on yet. And I think he's visiting a grave. We've had at least 2 grave visitations prior to this, I think. And I believe this is Battalion's grave, who was the leader of Stormwatch before. So now the leader of Stormwatch is Diva, which is interesting. I didn't think Diva ever really got to be a character, so that's something. And Diva is going to warn Backlash about this resurrected Hellspawn threat, and that he needs to go up against him all by himself. And she's going to look a little creepy when she's telling him about it, which kind of, gives us the hint that maybe she's being duplicated. And yeah, not to put too fine a point on it, yes, she is. That's Mr. White. And we're going to get all of the Wildstorm universe shoved into the Wetworks mobile. So this is Wildcats and Wetworks and Grifter and Deathblow. Anybody else? Well, there's Hightower, sure. And I appreciate the effort being put into it, like, particularly since he's trying to work out some shadows in the background here. That's good of him. But yeah, like the finish here, it's not 100% there. He's getting better, but he's still got to work some shit out. I think, though, that he would get a little better. It's all right. So yeah, we're coming back to Defile. Diva turns back into Mr. White. So the whole thing is for Backlash to basically keep Hellspawn distracted so that he can't get to the Daemonite Dreadnought before Defile does. And, these big shots of our villains look pretty cool. This is the kind of thing that, a 20-21-year-old will draw over and over again. Just a big, take up most of the page shot of Hellspawn or Defile. That would absolutely be up their alley. So I think Hellspawn is looking for his submarine, because if we recall, Hellspawn had his evil submarine where he and his henchmen would meet and discuss their evil plans over a lovely dinner that Hellspawn made for them. So I don't know if they found the submarine. It feels like they didn't really say anything one way or the other. Like, they mentioned the submarine, and then Hellspawn's on something. I don't think he's on the Dreadnought. I don't think anybody's found the Dreadnought yet. This doesn't make any sense as a submarine. Maybe he's on another ship? I don't even know. But Backlash just kind of shows up out of nowhere on this ship that they're on. I'm going to say submarine. Why not? And yeah, he just starts attacking Hellspawn because Hellspawn's obviously evil. He looks like the devil. And we're going to get another extended fight sequence. It's, it's going to be kind of confused and everything, but that's okay. I think Brett Booth's having some fun drawing Hellspawn over and over again, so that's cool. Meanwhile, Stormwatch is getting ready to insert somewhere. I don't know if they really mention where. Okay. Thanks to Skywatch Intelligence, this is Synergy speaking. Synergy is Weatherman at the moment. We've uncovered a major threat posed by a Daemonite lord called Hellspawn. He's attempting to gain control of a Daemonite starship buried in Nicaragua. So, okay, Stormwatch knows about Nicaragua. They probably don't know the exact coordinates, but it's going to get pretty obvious pretty quickly with all of these super people converging on it. They ask for a location on Hellspawn. They say Gulf of Mexico. Skywatch just pinpointed the position of his submarine. Okay, so he's on his submarine. And that's where Stormwatch is going to head to. Like, there's some good stuff going on this splash. Like, particularly in, looking on, Fuji here. There's all sorts of fun musculature going on here. Faces are a problem at this time for Brett Booth. Very obvious. Also, women are a problem. Keeping, figures loose, and not stiff. Also a problem. He's picking shit up fast, and I think he's, making huge money at this time doing this book. But he's still got a ways to go. And, the fight here is okay, but not spectacular by any means. We're going to get a couple of decent things, like this shot of, I guess they're on top of the submarine, or whatever, and Hellspawn drops Backlash off it. Backlash basically uses he's got the whips that come out of his wrists, and he uses them like Spider-Man webbing, drags Hellspawn down with him, and they just kind of tussle around in the ocean here. I'm not sure exactly what even happened. I don't know, he has some kind of energy emitting thing, and he blows Hellspawn out of the water. And that shot looks nice, at least. It's nice and backlit. And Hellspawn shoots him back. That kind of leaves him just sinking into the water. Nothing particularly great there. And this is Nautica, I think, who fishes him out. And now they're going to have to chase after Hellspawn. So they showed up right after he left, I take it. And we're able to save Backlash, but not able to stop Hellspawn. So now everything's going to be heading towards Nicaragua, because that's where everyone figures the ship is. And everyone's got keys of some kind. And Savant and Majestic and Union are working on trying to dig the ship out. I guess there's some progression going on, but for the most part, yeah, it really is just punch, 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 punch. Move the story incrementally. That's a nice pinup. Who is this? Taboo. Never heard of you. By who? I mean, I saw Richard Friend as the inker. Jeff Rebner. Sounds like vaguely familiar. I can't place it though. Oh, and there's a Backlash cover by Brett Booth. Yeah, it ain't quite right. You know, the color's doing a whole lot of the work there. But yeah, not particularly imaginative. Although he does seem to be kind of going for a Spider-Man feel with Backlash, and I never really got that impression before. Okay, Chapter 9. This is the last one we're looking at today. This is Stormwatch number 22. Another great cover by Barry Windsor-Smith. One of the best covers that he did for this. I think the Objective Hell one is still probably the best one. But we had a couple of decent ones throughout when Barry can kind of, muster up the interest. And yeah, I maybe just as being one of the last ones, he was like, okay, time to pour some energy into that. All right, so this is going to be, everybody kind of converging on Nicaragua. And this is by Renato Arlem. I'm not familiar, but he's not good. Not good enough. But he does read a lot of either Joe Mad or Roger Cruz. Maybe both. It feels like he's ripping off Roger Cruz, who, of course, is ripping off Joe Mad. Okay, so this is Stormwatch versus Hellspawn. Yeah, and this is kind of terrible, really. I think this one was by Steve Siegel as well. No, Ron Mars. All right. And it's just all bad. It's not very, like, the story is, when we get away from the fighting, like, it's fine. It's serviceable. Ron Mars is okay as a writer. And then we get to these stupid fights, and nothing happens. And nothing's resolved, because we're only on Chapter 9. We're not at the ending yet. All right, so they decide to release Regent. Regent is, I believe, Battalion's father, who's a supervillain, and he's got the War Guard with him, and that's these guys here behind him. Because they think that for some reason he might help them. He might not. In which case they would just be right back where they are now. So, you might as well release him and hope that maybe he helps a little bit. Of course, he could also make things worse, too, which I think is kind of what he's going to do. And you see, just like this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing at all. This is like high school level quality of art. And then the rest of the stuff, I don't know if he's just tracing or copying or what. It feels like it, though. It feels like he's copying or tracing directly from Whilce Portacio. There was a second there where I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't the guy who did the all swipes issues of Wolverine, is it? No, that was Fabio Laguna. So this is just another guy who likes to do kind of similar stuff. So kind of looks like Stormwatch gets beaten by Hellspawn, and they find out that Regent and Warguard have been released by Stormwatch. So Stormwatch's kind of in a bad spot, really. Meanwhile, Union and Majestic and Savant are working to clear out the rubble that's encasing the ship. That's, they pretty much found it. And Union's going to unearth the ship. I guess he's going to turn his stick into a big shovel. That would probably work. But really, Union is absolutely useless. His only use in this series so far has been as manual labor. That's kind of what Majestic is doing too, but Majestic at least went and rescued Savant and her buddy from Mr. White when they were being tortured. And I think we're getting a showdown here because we're getting our big vertical panels. Remember when Barry Windsor-Smith was doing that at the beginning of Wildstorm Rising #1? And then the ship is unearthed, only it's not a Daemonite warship. It's a Cherubim warship, I guess. even if it's not necessarily a warship, because it looks like it's probably pretty tiny. So this would be the Caravan ship that crash landed here thousands of years ago instead. So if they don't find the Daemonite Dreadnought, I guess that means the keys have been irrelevant all this time. That would be kind of hilarious, really. So anyway, that's it for like most of the Wildstorm Rising crossover. Yeah, like not really a ton happened. It was actually very similar to something like Extreme Prejudice, where, what's his name? Battlestone's dad goes around, Quantum, that was his name, given name on his driver's license, goes around the Extreme Studios universe from book to book. And in every book, he fights whoever owns that book. Got to fight Brigade, got to fight Bloodstrike, got to fight Team Youngblood, got to fight Supreme and beat him the first time out for some reason. And this really wasn't much different. It was just a fight in every issue that wasn't coordinated. It didn't really follow from issue to issue. You could pick up like 3 of these and have a decent idea of what was going on in this series by the time you got to the end of it. Assuming you're collecting this shit at the time. If you're not, I don't think you're missing out very much. There weren't too many of these that had particularly great art. At least they all had the Barry Windsor Smith covers. The Will Portasio stuff looked very nice, even if it wasn't particularly imaginative. And you can say the same thing about the J. Scott Campbell stuff, really. And then you get the pages by Ryan Benjamin and Brett Booth, and it's more, it's interesting because we know where they're going to end up. And it's like, okay, how much has he picked up at this point? And can we see him pick up any more before we, decide to leave this by the wayside completely? So yeah, a couple of interesting bits, but overall, completely forgettable. As really deep down, I think we all knew it would be. So next time we'll do Wildstorm Rising number 2, which I believe is done mostly by Kevin Maguire, which is a weird choice. But maybe everybody else was busy, who knows? So hey, at least we'll get that out of the way. But anyway, for this one, that's going to do it. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notification button so you know when the next one's coming out. In the description, there's a link to my Patreon. Go over there and subscribe. It gives you early access to everything I do, from the Blood Force comics to the YouTube videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, as well as some Patreon exclusive content. You can also follow me on Instagram and DM me there for commissions. Commissions are now open. But yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks again for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.